Thank you. Good morning. It is the 22nd of February, Wednesday. We are starting off this morning with a couple of bill introductions. As I was just telling the committee, Representative McCarthy, the chair, is running behind. So we're going to do have a quick chat right now with Representative Williams on his bill, H-140. And it's regarding requirements for state-funded grants. And good morning, Representative. How are you? Welcome to Gov.Ops and Military Affairs.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. My name is Jonathan Williams of Berry City. So I care about two things very much. The first is food security issues because I work for the food bank. And the second is making government more efficient because my background is in municipal and local government. I've worked for the League of Cities and Towns, and I've been a town administrator for a number of communities, Pomfret, Calais, others. And so this bill, I care about it very much. And this is my first bill walkthrough, so please forgive me if I stumble.
But know how to start somewhere.
So this bill does three things very quickly. The first is that, like the philanthropic world, it would create a standard grant form that would not replace, but would supplement or optionally serve as an alternative to every single state grant program. And the reason it does that, and that is in Section 1 of the bill, H-140, it would create a standard grant application form, grant agreement form, and reporting form. The reason it does that is I and others have applied for many different state agencies funding vehicles over the years. They are all different. They are all confusing. Many of them do not have ADA accessible language. Many of them are very complicated in both the terminology that they use and the way that they are structured. Even some new grant programs, grant management systems, like those used by the Agency of Education, even though they are brand new, they still have a lot of hiccups. They will boot you after 5 minutes if you do not enter the budget section of your grant application quickly, and then they don't allow you to save. They are not great. VTrans, in the 15 years that I have worked in local government, has never featured their grant programs on one page of their website. They are all over the place. So this would create, much like SF 424, which is a federal core grant form, and much like the Massachusetts Common Form, which is used by a huge number of philanthropic organizations, it would create one form that each state agency could expand on or utilize that would have very simple, accessible language, very brief. It would be 1 to 3 pages at most. And then if the agency or department so chooses, they can add additional supplementary forms. The second thing this bill would do is allow the state, and I believe that's Section 2. Sorry, no, that it would, it's still part of Section 1. The second thing it would do is it would allow the state to accept higher than 10% de minimis for indirect and administrative costs. For those of you who don't know what admin or indirect costs are, they are the costs that it takes to run an organization. And they are not easily tracked as much as, say, the purchase of a new plow truck for a municipality. In every instance, and I've heard this from dozens of municipal officials, nonprofit employees, school officials, and others, in every instance where an entity wished to apply their actual indirect rate, the state, especially in the case of federal funds, has said, stop, no, you must take the 10% de minimis uniformly across all applications. According to federal rule, they are more than allowed to take more than 10% if the entity can prove or show their math. Some entities, larger ones, like larger nonprofits, have a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, or NICRA, with the federal government, in which case they have a signed agreement that says you, in the case of federal funding, pass-through funding, can take more than 10%. And in those instances, they can just use that agreement and show the state, and the state says, fine. But if an entity can show their math according to federal OMB circular rule, they are allowed to take higher than 10%. My own employer, the Vermont Food Bank, our actual indirect rate is 30%. And that's the real cost of distributing food to 1 in 3 people in the state annually. But the state has insisted again and again across multiple state agencies and departments that you must take at most 10% of this grant. It can be allowed for indirect or administrative costs. This would require that the state come up with a way of allowing entities, be them municipalities or nonprofits or otherwise businesses even, to take higher than 10% if they can show their math. The third and final thing this bill would do, and by golly, I'm very excited about this, it would create, for the cost of $35,000, according to JFO, one website that the state would put on that lists every single grant and funding mechanism for towns in the state of Vermont. And we have talked again and again through the budget adjustment and in many other instances about municipal capacity. Every single municipal staff person that I have shared this with in Berry City and elsewhere that has talked about, that I have told this to, they're like, oh my God, why haven't we done that years ago? Other states do this. The state of New Jersey does this. They list all of their grants and with hyperlinks indexed on one website that a municipal administrator or a select board member or an overworked clerk or treasurer can go to and say, I need funding to pave our streets, or I need a municipal planning grant. And it just links to the state's wherever that grant is located on the Agency of Commerce and Community Development or whomever. That is section 3. That is what this bill does in 3 parts. I have spoken to staff persons from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and they are supportive of this bill. I have spoken to Common Good Vermont, and they are supportive of this bill. I have spoken to many people in Berry City who work for our municipal government, and they are supportive of this bill. And I am supportive of this bill, and it's why I ran for state office. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions.
No, thank you. That was really thorough. As a hospitality industry owner coming out of a pandemic, I'm definitely have experienced and can really understand where you're coming from on the broad range of requirements and form structures that one goes after grants and forgivable loans. So I completely understand what you're saying here. I think that the Secretary of State's office did something similar to this with the business portal, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
They're still working on the business portal, and I just signed on to a bill that would update the deadline for when that business portal is ready to launch. But yes, very similar.
Okay.
Indeed. I've also spoken with Deputy Secretary Doug, his last name escapes me, from the Agency of Administration.
Farnham,
thank you, Douglas Farnham. And I spoke to him last Friday. He is very supportive of the intent behind this bill. He believes some of it can be done by rule, but I would rather enshrine it in statute to make sure that we hold state government accountable. He is especially supportive of the piece around the indirect rate because he believes that some agencies are under the misconception or misperception that they are not allowed to take more than the 10% de minimis, when that is simply not the case. If you choose to follow up with this bill, I'm sure he would like to speak to its components. But in principle, he being the grants guru for the Agency of Administration is also fairly supportive.
Okay. That's all I have off the top of my head for questions. Anyone around the table? No, I mean, I really appreciate the bill's concept and intent, streamlining these things. It can be very clunky trying to navigate the different programs, especially, I mean, we created so many more outlets and vehicles for the access to monies brought in by the federal government and programmatic dollars that I definitely see merit in the concept. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. We'll get back to my committee.
Yeah, no, you want to go, make sure you're in the right spot in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. And so we decided not to have Representative Sims in on H105. We decided to reschedule that. She had time constraints with committee. Chair McCarthy's late, and that was something we all wanted to take a deeper look at because it's something that we might take off the wall and pick up after crossover. So we wanted to be able to provide enough time with him present to have a deeper conversation. So with that, I don't think we have any formal business until 9:45. So